What's up guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ndifon Ntui and today I'll be teaching you how to draft a basic bodice block. Now a basic bodice block is a great starting point for most patterns that involve your top half. From a pattern like this you can make tops and blouses, and when you attach a sleeve block to it you can make stuff like shirts and jacket. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe.
So you're welcome once again. We'll be needing you will need a measuring tape, a pen, scissors, a ruler. It doesn't have to be this one. If you have a little ruler like the wooden one I have here, that would do. If you also have a yardstick, that would work. We don't have any curves here because I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible so the beginners don't get confused and don't feel discouraged about not having the curves to draft. So I have two sheets of paper. The one underneath is for the back and the one on top is for the front. Okay, these are the measurements that I'm using to draft my bodice. The first step is we're going to mark 2 inches. This is going to be our zipper allowance. Now I'm going to mark from top to bottom, as you can see, and when I'm done with marking the points, I'm going to roll a straight line, marking out my zipper allowance. When I'm done marking the zipper allowance, I'm going to fold the zipper allowance underneath so that it won't get in the way when we're drafting, so that the beginners will not get confused. Okay, now that's that. When we are done with that, we're going to mark a ½ inch, keep ½ inch allowance at the top, and from that line we'll drop all the measurements we need for drafting the bodice. The first one will be our shoulder to our bust, our shoulder to our waist, and our shoulder to the hip. When I am done marking those points, I'm going to just draw some horizontal lines across the points that I have marked already. I'm just drawing random horizontal lines on the points that we've marked already. This, you don't have to be too worried about the length of these lines. Now I'm placing the neckline measurements for these bodies. We are going to use a neckline width of 3 and a neckline depth of 3. Now mind you, necklines are not always 3 inches. It depends on what you are making. Necklines are quite dynamic. The neckline that you have for a t-shirt is not the same neckline that a tank top would have, so it changes according to what you're drafting. But for the purpose of this project, we're going to use the neckline depth of 3 and neckline width of 3. I'm sloping my shoulder by 1 inch because the human shoulder is not straight, so that's what I'm doing now, simply making a slope from the ½ inch allowance that we kept at the top. Now I'm placing the armhole. The formula for drafting your armhole is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5, and that is that. I'm going to draw a straight line from the shoulder down to the bottom of the point where the armhole stops, and I'm drawing another line. That point, the bottom of that point is the upper chest. I'm finding the middle of the armhole, and I'm going to mark ½ inch into that point because the front of the armhole of the front part of your bodice is usually ½ inch deeper than the back part. As you can see, I am doing this without a curve, so you don't have any excuse for not drafting a bodice yourself. Now I'm going to place the bust, the waist, and the hip. The bust is divided by 4, the waist divided by 4, and the hip is divided by 4. The waist is 30, but I'm going to mark it is 30, which is 7.5, but I'm marking it at 8.5 because I'm keeping 1 inch allowance to replace the waist, the darts, the measurements, the excess that the darts would yeah, I'm adding half inch for the dart, 1 inch for the dart. I'm simply going to drop my hip measurement at this point. I'm going to draw a straight line to connect all the dots that I have on the side. As you can see, we're almost done. Now I'm placing your bust point to bust point measurement, which is 8 divided by 2, 4. This is going to tell me, it's going to help me with placing the dart. So I'm going to mark it at the bust, the waist, and at the hip. When I'm done with marking the points, I'm going to again connect my dots from top to bottom. Now that is 1 inch. The center of 1 inch is what I'm going to place on that line. I'm marking half inch on both sides of that vertical line that we have there. The dart starts from 1 inch after the bust point. So as you can see, I'm starting from 1 inch under the bust point to rule the lines to create my dart. Now I'm simply going to add all the allowance that I will need, which is just 1 inch on all points. I'm going to draw a line to connect all the dots that I have, and as you can see, as I'm doing that, you can see the 1 inch allowance that I have kept on the side. Now the armhole for the back, like I said before, is different from the armhole that we use in the front of our bodies. So I'm going to draw a line to highlight the armhole for the back. The next thing is the neckline. The neckline is also not the same, only if you want it to be, but for the purpose of this project, I'm going to slope the neckline by 1 inch. Okay. Now I'm adding 1 inch allowance at the bottom of my bodice, just like I did on the side of my bodice. That's going to help us with allowance at the bottom of the bodice for when we are sewing. I'm adding half inch. I'm ruling a parallel line, half inch from the top of my shoulder to the bottom of my shoulder. This is going to serve as our seam allowance. When we're sewing, that's the half inch that we're going to use when we're binding the front and the back of the bodice together. So we start to cut. If you notice, I'm cutting the pattern that I sketched out for the back first, because you don't want to cut the front, if not you will end up destroying the back. So first you cut the back because it's bigger, and that's what I'm doing. Cut down the armhole. Now I'm going to cut down the side. I'm going to separate the back from the front. As you can see, that's what I'm doing. And when I have done this, before I separate them totally, I'm going to mark my bust point, I'm going to mark my waist and my hip, because I'm going to need to draw those same horizontal lines for the back bodice. It's going to help me find my dart for the back part of my bodice. So as you can see, I'm going to simply rule the horizontal lines for the bust, for the waist, and for the hip. I'm ruling a line to highlight the zipper space that I kept before we started drafting the bodice. If y'all remember, we kept 2 inches for the zip allowance. So I'm writing that so you guys understand what I'm doing. from the zip space, I'm going to mark the same 4 inches that I marked in front, because the back also needs a dart too. Now, unlike the bodice unlike the front of the bodice, you start your dart 1 inch before the bust point. For the front is 1 inch after, for the back is 1 inch before. Just keeps getting more complicated and complicated, don't it? Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I was drawing out the darts for the front. I'm simply going to rule my lines and connect the dots. As you can see, this is the front and that is the back. Now I'm going to cut out the excess that I have. I'm going to cut out the excess that I have on the front, because if you notice, we still have the zipper allowance in the front and we don't need that for the front, we need that only at the back. So I'm going to chop off the excess. When I'm done with the zipper, I'm going to cut the neckline to be lower, because I want the neckline in front to be lower, and then I'm going to cut the armhole so it's accurate. We needed that excess at the back, we didn't need it in front. So as you can see, this is the front of the bodice and the back of the bodice. Like and subscribe. Yeah, thank you.